Point 1. Follow around the buildings and turn left through the gate up beside the stream. Follow the track between the stream and the wall until you reach a wooden footbridge. This stream, the Afon Glasfrwd, was diverted by the monks. It used to run through where the Strata Florida car park is now. This is not the only change the monks associated with the Abbey made to the landscape. Crossing the bridge over Afon Glasfrwd, you enter Abbey Wood. The woodland here was planted by the monks in around 1200 and managed to provide the wood and timber needs of the Abbey. Although Abbey Wood has not been in management for many years, much of the original species makeup is still evident. There is within the wood a far greater proportion of hazel than is usually found in woodlands in this part of Wales. This hazel, as well as providing, through coppicing, a renewable source of wood for the Abbey, would have provided an invaluable food resource for red squirrels. These woods are roughly 800 years old, but there's very little understory due to intensive grazing by livestock and lack of management for many centuries. This reduces the health of the woodlands as there are few young trees to fill spaces created by old trees falling over. Point 2. Cross the bridge, then follow the stream, keeping it on your left until it branches off to the left and the bridleway continues up the hill to a gate. Red squirrels are native to the UK. They made their way to the British Isles from mainland Europe at the end of the last ice age, about 10,000 years ago. They thrived in the UK habitats of Scots pine, hazel and oak, such as this, until grey squirrels were introduced from America. This habitat is so attractive to grey squirrels that nowadays the surviving reds have been pushed into the 20th century conifer plantations on the higher slopes. Grey squirrels are between 1.5 to 2 times larger than red squirrels, so each individual eats more food. They also live at much higher density. If left unmanaged, grey squirrels would replace the red squirrels, but there would be much higher numbers of greys than there were reds in the woods. This higher density, coupled with their larger size and appetite, means they outcompete red squirrels, eating all the food. They can also digest the tannins in acorns more efficiently than red squirrels. Grey squirrels also have a large impact on biodiversity, opportunistically feeding on birds' eggs or young fledglings and stripping the bark from trees, which either kills them or leaves them open to infection. All of these are exacerbated by the high density and calorific requirements of a grey squirrel population. The resulting monetary impact of the damaged timber, lost carbon revenue and tree replacement is not insignificant. £37 million a year in England and Wales. You might see a squirrel on your journey today, but do you know how to tell what species you're looking at? Unfortunately, it's not as simple as it should be. Grey squirrels can have lots of red fur, and indeed, red squirrels can have grey fur. Point 3. Go through the gate and follow the bridleway across the open ground. This section can be quite boggy, until you reach another gate taking you back into the woodland. Many people identify red squirrels by their famous tufty ears, but this is not always a reliable method. Red squirrels don't always have ear tufts, and even when they do, they can be hard to see, even when they're polite enough to sit around long enough for you to have a good look. The best thing to look out for is the tail. The tails of grey squirrels have a halo effect to them, as each individual hair in their fur changes colour from gingery grey to black to white. You can see a halo around the outside of their tails as the white tips catch the light. Red squirrel tails don't have this. Red squirrel tails can be red, brown, black, blonde to even greyish, and sometimes have a pale tip or a dark core. But each hair is the same colour along its length and therefore doesn't have the same halo effect. Since the industrialisation of the United Kingdom, the loss of much of our native woodlands to forestry and timber production, as well as urbanisation and large-scale agriculture and farming, has had a negative impact on many species. After the Second World War, increased timber production was encouraged by the government. The vast majority of this was the non-native Sitka spruce, valued for its strength and rapid growing speed. Have a look at some of the differences between the spruce plantation up ahead and the more native broadleaf woodland behind us. Point 4. Go through the gate and follow the path up into the forestry. When you reach the track, turn left and follow it along until you see a path heading up on your right. You will rejoin this track later on. The Sitka spruce forestry on the right here is generally thought to be of poor habitat for most species. This is indeed the case for squirrels. The seeds inside their cones are very small with low nutritional content. Red squirrels are just about small enough to survive on the meagre food source of these Sitka spruce seeds. But as grey squirrels are that little bit larger, the Sitka spruce seeds are too small for them to bother with and are more effort than they're worth, so grey squirrels don't tend to venture far into these commercial forests. This has created an isolated island of the spruce plantations of Mid-Wales, where the red squirrels were able to retreat to and cling on, while the grey squirrels spread around and dominated the rest of the country. This has led to many people believing that Sitka spruce plantations are good habitat for red squirrels. This isn't true. Red squirrels would thrive in native broadleaf forests, but only if the pressure of grey squirrels is removed. The grey squirrel population in Britain is currently just under 3 million. Numbers of red squirrels have fallen to roughly 120,000, of which only about 1,500 are in Wales. In Mid-Wales, we still don't have an accurate population estimate, but it's likely to be in the region of a few hundred. Point 5. Follow the bridleway out to the forest and turn right, heading back into the forest to rejoin the track. In the 1950s, Wales was still populated by red squirrels, and it's only been in the last half-century that the tables have turned for red squirrels in Mid-Wales. The Mid-Wales Red Squirrel Partnership was formed in 2002, when local foresters noticed that they were still seeing red squirrels in the upland forest blocks east of Tregaron and around Llyn-Brianne, whilst elsewhere in Wales, greys were dominant. The partnership is formed of county councils, charities, large commercial forest managers, governmental bodies and volunteers. Currently, the Wildlife Trust of South and West Wales are leading on the partnership and have a team of 3 staff dedicated to the project. Through the partnership, they've been able to work together to protect the red squirrels where they've survived through landscape-scale grey squirrel control and influencing land management. 2 other red squirrel populations are known to survive in Wales, one on Anglesey and another in Clochainog. Both these populations have had help through red squirrel releases, either via relocating squirrels from Scotland or release of captive bred squirrels. This means that the Mid-Wales population is the only one left in Wales whose genetics can be 100% traced back to the native historical population. Point 6. Take the footpath downhill into the woods off the forest track. You will reach a crossing of 2 paths. Continue straight here until you reach a wooden gate taking you out of the forest. Turn right at the gate and follow the fence. Keeping it on your right, go through another gate by a large oak tree and follow the fence line downhill, now keeping it on your left until you reach another gate. The red squirrel population in Mid-Wales is relatively small and spread across quite a large area. So how do you monitor a shy species like a red squirrel in a dense forest? Thankfully, they leave some signs behind them. The seeds of conifer trees in this country are food to many. Red and grey squirrels, woodpeckers, crossbills and mice all eat them. It's often possible to tell who's been eating the seeds based on how they've left the cone. Untouched cones will have scales fairly close together, overlapping all the way up to the top. Squirrels hold cones with their front paws and turn it as they chew off each scale at a time, revealing the seeds underneath, working from the base up, leaving the core of the cone intact. It's not possible to tell which type of squirrel has been eating the cone, but other species can be ruled out. Mice only eat the seeds of cones that have fallen onto the ground, but being only about the size of a cone, they chew the scales where they lie, leaving a ridge up one side where it was resting. Crossbills access the seeds in the treetops by using their specially adapted beaks to prise open the scales to get the seeds. These cones often fall to the ground and have a rather dishevelled look, with scales pulled out at odd angles. Woodpeckers tend to carry cones to a dead tree or stump and wedge a cone into the side of it, and then use brute force to break out the seeds. Point 7. You are now at the top of Coed de Bont Community Wood. There are a number of paths through the woods. You can either follow the main path downhill ahead of you, or take the path downhill to the right and explore through the woods. These routes converge lower down in the wood, just before the final information point of this trail. The Mid-Wales Red Squirrel population is centred around one of the most remote areas of Wales, and sightings are few and far between. When the Mid-Wales Red Squirrel Partnership first formed, these irregular sightings were all they had to go on. Enough to confirm that there were still red squirrels, but not much more than this. With the advancements of modern trail camera technology, the ability to monitor red squirrels has greatly improved. But, as squirrels live relatively solitary lives, most camera trap records are just one squirrel at a time. On rare occasions two, which means estimating population size and even telling if the population is increasing or decreasing is still very difficult. So for now, the population estimate remains at between 100 and 300. This is a wide range and covers an all-important number. Populations of squirrels fewer than 250 strong tend to decline and go extinct. Populations of more than this are able to be stable and sustainable. We don't currently know which side of this number the population in Mid-Wales falls. Point 8. Whichever path you take, you'll end up on the main track not far from the quarry. Turn right onto the track around the lower section of Coed de Bont to head out to the wood towards the road. Coed de Bont Community Wood is owned by NRW, but has been managed by the local community for wildlife and recreation since 2012. This section was once the end of Abbey Wood, and a few of the original hazel trees are still evident. This upper section of the woods was planted with conifer by the Forestry Commission in the mid-20th century and has recently been felled. A combination of natural regeneration and species-specific replanting will restore this area to mixed broadleaf woodland over the next few years. The lower section of the woods ahead of you was bog in the early days of the Abbey. A crop of conifer was grown on it during the 20th century by the Forestry Commission, and it is now regenerating into natural broadleaf woodland. Due to the wet nature of the land, the species mix is predominantly birch and grey willow, which, while not good habitat for squirrels, does provide habitat for many other species. Point 9. Coed de Bont Car Park. From here you can turn right onto the road and walk back to Strata, Florida Abbey. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to learn more about our project or get involved, please visit our website or find us on Facebook. You can support our project by reporting your squirrel sightings in Mid-Wales or volunteering with us. Alternatively, you can donate directly to the project through our website.